Hi students, welcome to exercise 8B on coterminal angles. Okay, so we're still working with angles in degrees and angles in radians. So depending on the question, you need to work with what's presented to you. Let's understand what a coterminal angle is. Coterminal angles are angles that share the same terminal arm. The terminal arm is this guy right here. So, for example, I'll just draw out a few angles. So this angle here is 70 degrees. If I went around the circle and then added 70 degrees, so that would be 360 plus 70. So 360 plus 70, 430. So if I drew an angle of 430 degrees, I would actually end on the same terminal arm. So we call them coterminal angles. Again, you could keep going a bunch of times in a row and stop there. That would be a coterminal angle. You could also go in the negative direction. So if I started here on the positive x-axis and I went this direction, okay, and this would be 70 degrees, so this total would be 290. Negative 290 degrees would also be a coterminal angle. The way you could calculate that, you start at 70 degrees and you subtract a rotation. So you could add rotations, you could subtract rotations, all of those are coterminal angles of 70 degrees. And you can add those an infinite amount of times and you would still have a coterminal angle. So adding and subtracting revolutions can find the coterminal angle. So if you add either 360 degrees or subtract, but you can also add or subtract 2 pi, because that's also a full rotation. So if you have an angle, right, and add 2 pi to it, you still would have a coterminal angle because you would be at the exact same position. The angle would be different, but the position would be the same. Alright, so determine 3 coterminal angles for 40 degrees. So let's start with the two obvious ones. So you have 40 degrees, 40 degrees, and we can add 360, and that would give us 400 degrees. So that would be one possibility. You could take your starting angle, 40 degrees. You could also subtract 360 degrees, which give you negative 320 degrees. So now let's say I want to find another one, because I've only found two coterminal angles. 40 degree isn't coterminal at 40. So I could just say, let's add 2 rotations, for example. So I'm going to add 720. So really that would just simply be adding 360 to this one, right? And the total would be 760. So all 4 of these are coterminal to 40 degrees. Okay, so now what if we're working with radians? Same idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with pi over 6. That is an angle in the first quadrant. And I'm going to add 2 pi to that. Okay, so now you're going to be working with fractions and get used to it, deal with it. That's what you've got in grade 12 pre-cal. You got to add fractions together. So often instead of adding 2 pi, what I do is, since this fraction's over 6, we're going to change the 2 pi to also over 6, which means now you can simply add your numerators and you have a coterminal angle. So 13 pi over 6 is actually 12 pi over 6 more than pi over 6. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. We're going to subtract 12 pi over 6. Again, 12 pi over 6 and 2 pi, that's the same. And you're going to have negative 11 pi over 6, right? And don't forget, we need to add or find a third one, right? So we'll start with pi over 6, and this time we're going to add 2 revolutions. And if you remember, 2 revolutions would be 4 pi. And again, we want to work with fractions on 6, so I'm going to change this to 24 pi over 6, which now leaves us with 25 pi over 6. So all 3 of these are coterminal to pi over 6. Alright, in this example, I want to find all the coterminal angles of 740 on the interval negative 360 to 0. So if you think about what negative 360 to 0 would be, this would be the first revolution in the negative direction, right? Because if you were to sketch this angle, you would have an angle somewhere in that revolution, okay? So at the end of the day, we need to subtract 360 from 740 a bunch of times until we get into this revolution. So subtract 360 from 740, you get 380. Okay, Not far enough, you need to subtract another one. So you do 380 minus 360, and you get 20 degrees. Notice that you're still not in that interval. You're still a positive value. So we're going to subtract it one more time. So negative 360. Again, I'm just subtracting revolutions, right? And we have the angle negative 340 degrees. That would be the coterminal angle within that interval. So you have to be careful what interval I'm asking you, because if I'm specific on an interval, you need to know how to get to that interval specifically. And in this case, we had to subtract 3 revolutions to go from 740 to the revolution we're looking for. Okay, here this one, determine all the coterminal angles for 5 pi over 3 on the interval negative 4 pi to 2 pi. So let's make sure we know what this represents first. Alright, well, 0 to 2 pi is your first revolution, right? So 0 to 2 pi is this, so you want something, your first positive revolution. Well, what is negative 4 pi? Well, if you did one negative revolution, you'd be at negative 2 pi. And if you did a second negative revolution, you'd be at negative 4 pi. So there are 3 revolutions here. So that's something that needs to be recognized. We have 3 revolutions. And if you have 3 revolutions, that means you're going to have 3 solutions. Because there'll be 3 different spots, or same spot 3 different times, that you're going to have a coterminal angle equal to 5 pi over 3. Okay, well, 5 pi over 3, if you notice, this value is actually less than 2 pi. And 2 pi, if you added 2 pi to this, so don't forget to find a coterminal angle, you have to add or subtract 2 pi, adding full revolutions. If I add 2 pi to that, I would be in the second positive revolution. We don't want that. We just want the 2 negative ones and the first positive one. So, I'm going to take this 5 pi over 3, and I'm going to subtract 6 pi over 3. Don't forget, this is 2 pi. If you need to write a note, put it down. That's 2 pi. So now you would get negative pi over 3. That is the first negative value that you want. That would be in the first negative revolution. And then from that point, we need one more. So we're going to subtract negative 6 pi over 3 again. And we get negative 7 pi over 3. And there's our other answer. Always, if you want to check quickly, this is negative 1/3. Negative 1/3 fits between negative 4 and 2. We're good. 7/3 is about negative 2.3. Negative 2.3 falls between negative 4 and 2. So those are easy way to check. Alright, the last question, I've accidentally not added a value to this. So let's insert angles, determine all coterminal angles of, let's go negative 5 pi over 12. Over the interval 0 to 2 pi. So again, 0 to 2 pi, that is the first positive revolution. Okay, so this is a negative angle. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 2 pi. And since this one is over 12, I'm going to add 24 pi over 12. Don't forget, you want to add 2 pi every time, right? And that's 2 pi. So I added 2 pi. So what I get is 19 pi over 12. And that would be, again, 19 pi over 12, if you did that fraction, would be 1 point something. 1 point something would fall between 0 and 2. And that would be your coterminal angle. So at the end of the day, what you need to remember, guys, is you need to add or subtract 2 pi to get coterminal angles. Okay, and this one only has one possible solution. Okay, the reason is this interval is only one revolution. And you can only have one coterminal angle per revolution. So only one possible answer. Good luck, and we'll see each other in class.